You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Hi, Principal Matters. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke. Jen, I almost forgot what we do. And who
what we're doing today.
Yeah. But this is a Monday Matters episode. It's going to be coming out late August, and
we're a little punchy today.
We are a little
punchy.
Well, it's just before we talk about, we're going to be talking more about your book. And this week we're going to be talking about how to build trust with teachers more. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that topic. But I've been traveling a lot, Jen, and this is the beginning of a new school year. And Emily, who is our assistant for editing and for this whole work that I do with Principal Matters, was teasing me the other day because I was going through my list of meetings and things to do, and she just kind of gave me one of those small comments like, "Oh, Dad, it sounds like you're." It sounds like you wish you were retired because you're talking. It's like. And so sometimes I forget. Oh yeah. There's a reason we work, and
Right.
and when we have the opportunity to be with people and to be engaged, we should remember that. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's called work. And so for me lately, work has been lots of roads and lots of airplanes. So I'm kind of glad. Really, I'm really glad to be sitting at home today talking to you through Zoom, Jen.
Yeah.
How are you doing as you step into this new school year?
I'm doing great. And I'm not punchy because of travel. I'm punchy because our students are back in session. And on a personal note, my son is at college, and lots of changes. So a lot going on, the heads are spinning, but listeners should know that when Will and I start to record and we're feeling a little bit frazzled, we just dive right in. So that's what we're going to do today.
Ooh, yes, ma'am. Okay, let's rewind. If you listen to this podcast regularly, Jen and I have been talking about her new book. And Jen, tell us the title of the book and where people can find it.
Yep. This book is called Trusted: Trust Pillars, Trust Killers, and the Secret to Successful Schools. And it is out now. It was on pre-order for a while, but now anyone can get it at the ASCD website. That's my publisher, or at Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
And of course, we'll put a link in the show notes for Jen's new book. But Jen, last time we were together, I asked you to talk about the difference between trust pillars, trust killers. And this week, I just want to talk about, and we can come back to some of those same concepts, but especially when we're working with teachers. I wanted to, because you have a chapter specifically on trust with teachers. What are some things that principals should keep in mind when it comes to avoiding those trust killers, but also relying on those trust pillars, especially when working with their own teachers?
Right. Well, one of them, we touched on a few trust pillars in our last episode, but another trust pillar I wanted to talk about actually is competence. We assume that any principal who gets the master key and gets an office knows exactly what they're doing. And a lot of times that just isn't true. There's so much learning that happens on the job. And the reason I kind of landed on this when writing the book is an executive coaching session I did with a principal who was at the time working in Iowa, and he was required to get some executive coaching. And so enter me. And what he said was, my staff has, through their association, has determined that I'm incompetent and I have 1 year to turn things around. And, he was really stuck on that incompetent word because this was like his 5th principal job in like 3 different states. And he said, I know exactly what I'm doing and they think I'm incompetent. And so the very first thing when coaching with him was, I said, we have to find a way for you to avoid the blaming, the defensiveness, the avoiding culpability for problems. And we outlined together some steps that he could take that would increase his competence and thereby increase the trust that others had with him. And so I'll just quickly go through some of those, and then I'm sure you'll have some examples of how you've seen this play out as well. So I told him, I said, why don't you go back and review any evidence that you have with openness of incompetence. So look at your previous evaluations, look at what others have told you, listen to what the teachers in the association are telling you, reflect critically but openly about, previous emails, previous conversations, previous communications that you've had with staff members and what issues they may have raised. and really reflect on what the nature of the frustration that the staff is feeling.
Mm.
Examine those complaints and think about what they might mean about leadership. Usually, when someone says my principal is incompetent, they don't mean my principal is incompetent in every single thing. They usually mean something like my principal is not competent in running special education meetings. My principal isn't competent in training us on how to co-teach. My principal isn't competent on running a fire drill. Whatever it is, you really need to dig down to understand the situation, the processes, and the protocols that have people thinking that you're incompetent.
Mm. That's so wise, Jen. Keep going, because
So,
that's level
okay.
one.
So another one is honesty. I think it is so easy to kill trust if we fudge the truth. And that doesn't mean tell everybody all the things all the time at all. What it means is if you don't know, just say you don't know.
Mhm.
So many of us carry this heavy weight. I've got to know everything all the time. But rather than save face with partial or little bits of the truth, it's best, of course, to say, I'm sorry, I don't really know the answer to that question. You might say, I'll get back to you, or you might just stop there. I don't really know the answer. We want to avoid hoarding information. So, if we have information that can help somebody's life be a little bit easier in an educational setting, share that information, but also be sure to honor confidentiality or keep things tight that you need to keep tight. Another example of a trust pillar of honesty is to choose delayed truth over instant answers. That's
Mhm.
critical to say, you know what, I will, as soon as I have a full picture to share with you, I will, but don't choose that instant gratification, so to speak, of partial or untrue information. And then end conversations if there's nowhere for them to go. If someone's pushing for information that shouldn't be discussed, then, think of the no further comment approach taken by many public figures. You can just say with a friendly tone, hey, I really don't have any more to share. Honestly, I've given you everything I got and move on.
Wow. Jen, sometimes when I'm wrestling with all these issues around understanding your own practice, being able to take an honest look at the criticism you're receiving, knowing what to share, what not to share.
Mhm.
Um, I've been chewing on this word a lot lately, so I don't have any other way to say this at the moment, but it's the word wisdom. Like, we need
Mhm.
wisdom to know how to navigate so many of these really weird complexities with people and processes and systems. So I don't want anyone listening right now to think that any person ever perfects this stuff,
Mhm.
because none of us are perfect. But we can learn from mistakes, and we can uh, realize that there are certain foundational principles that,
Mhm.
if they're not practiced, you will destroy trust.
That's right.
And I'm just going to say this out loud, because we kind of live in a really weird culture right now where um, truth seems to be dependent on who you're talking to, or
Mhm.
spin seems to be the thing that's
Mhm.
necessary, especially in politics and culture. But when it comes to the real life relationships you have, the schools that we get to work with, the communities where people want to stay together and work together harmoniously over time, this stuff works, Jen. And it's
That's
so
right.
important to come back to it, because otherwise you're going to be sitting in the same seat that you're sitting in with this other person, asking them, okay, let's take a hard look
Right.
and let's revisit the things that can build or rebuild trust
Right.
over
Right.
time.
And you use the word wisdom, and that is in this setting, in this context, wisdom is sort of a synonym for professionalism.
Mm,
That is a trust face that I talk about quite a bit in the book, because I think of professionalism as a kind of a triple threat of trust pillars for principals. It equates to being fair, being equitable, and being connected to your staff.
mm,
And so, that's a great litmus test to ask yourself, is this thing I'm going to do or say, would it fit in a professionalism bucket?
mhm,
I remember working with someone once, and she was very, very close with a couple of teachers on her staff. And there were complaints and rumblings that she had favoritism and that it was, you know, exacerbating cliques, and it was a problem, right? And so this principal had to take a hard look on, the professionalism that she shared in her day to day. So if if a couple teachers were allowed to keep their lunch in her refrigerator in her office and then come and eat with her, it just wasn't necessarily a look that helped build trust. So a couple of components of professionalism that I think about a lot are we need to focus on equitable treatment of all teachers. And of course there's differentiation, and of course there's a lot of different situations that need to be flexed. But if we're equitable and fair, then that helps really fine tune that professionalism, connecting with other colleagues to make sure that we're not making decisions out of loneliness, and that we have a kind of a barometer, somebody who can help us say, oh, that's not how I do it in my building. Here's how I do it. And then think, okay, those shared ideas, those processed information, connecting experiences with other principals can really help hone that leadership skill.
Mm. Well, Jen, I know that because of our how much time we tried to commit to our Monday Matters, that we're going to wrap this up here quickly. And then I just want to encourage listeners to get a copy of this new book as a resource for you. But as we wrap up, I also just want to encourage listeners that if you're looking in that mirror of your own trust, I want to come back to something you said earlier, which is, if you think critically about the nature of criticism that you're receiving, and you can see a grain of truth in there, own what you can. But if some of that criticism you're getting back is unfair or untrue, then set that aside.
Right.
Focus on the thing that you can address.
Right. I'm really glad you said that. I think there is a lot of unfair criticism that comes to principals. And if it's unfair and untrue, and your principal friends or your superintendent or colleagues say that is bananas, then discard it. And, we've talked about leading around those toxic people who just seem to want to make everyone's life miserable, including the principals. So yeah, you're right. There is time that criticism needs to be discarded. I always say, look for trends. If you hear something over and over and over again from multiple people, it might be something you need to take a look at.
I love that. And there are times when people recognize that they haven't developed the capacity, or maybe they're not trustworthy. And so if that's the case, if you're looking at your own conversations and you realize that you are fudging the truth, or you are misrepresenting the facts, or you're hoarding information, which I think I love it that you said that, because telling the truth and being open is an important part. Not divulging confidentiality is important, but it's also important that you don't hoard information that could help other people.
That's right.
To understand what's going on too. And so all of those are a part of building the kinds of cultures of trust that we want, that we would want to be able to show up to work every day and experience, and that we want others to as well. So thank you, Jen, for this amazing resource. And Principal Matters listeners, if you found this conversation valuable today, would you take time to share it with someone else, or to, I think it's called rating. What do they do, Jen, with podcasts? Rate the podcast, or write a review. I'm supposed to say those things.
Yes, you are supposed to, but I don't know what to say either.
Yeah, I forget all that. I just forget. It's probably at the end of the show. We'll put it in with me remembering.
If you think we're great, go push a bunch of stars. There you go.
And let other people know, so that we can keep growing the opportunity to connect with other leaders, because this is so much fun. But Jen, thank you so much for your great work. And how can leaders stay connected to you?
Yes, find my newsletter at my website, jenschwanke.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter, which I have tongue-in-cheek called Principal Problems with Dr. Jen. So follow me and you'll get a little treat in your inbox every Wednesday.
Oh, and if you haven't signed up for our weekly updates, you can do that at my website at williamdparker.com. But until next time, thanks for doing what matters, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.